we're going to be doing a posing video for the Mafex Black Suit Spider-Man. And guys, this one is such a great figure. Hands down, one of the most posable Spider-Man figures I have in my collection. Probably second only to my SH Figuarts Integrated Suit Spider-Man. I don't think anything else has really beaten that in terms of articulation for me. But this guy can still get into some crazy poses. Before we get into the posing, I do want to talk about aesthetic. So, for the sake of comparison, I have the Marvel Legends Retro Black Suit Spider-Man, or Symbiote Spider-Man. And then I also have the one, I forget which wave this was in. I think this was the single carded one and not the Kraven 2-pack one. But they're both the same figure, so I really don't think it has much competition. Hate to break it to all you Marvel Legends guys out there. I personally love Marvel Legends, and I do still really like my Retro Symbiote Spider-Man over here. But this guy just kind of blows them out of the water. As you can see, he's got like a slight hint of blue to him, which is kind of doesn't really come across that much, but in this lighting I think it does a pretty good job showing you the blue, because he's not under too intense lights. I feel like once you put him under really intense lights, that all that shading or all those highlights just get completely lost on there, because it's very, very subtle. But it's also but it still adds a lot to the look of the figure when you're really looking at it close and under the right lightings. The head sculpt looks amazing. He does have two other head sculpts, which we will talk about later. He's very much like McFarlane, Bagley type of style, much in the same vein as like this Marvel Legends head sculpt on the right. I feel like they definitely could have done a better job painting the lines of the spider. And mine's not too bad. I've seen some that are far worse than mine. They really should have painted that better. But regardless, it still looks fantastic, and it's still the best looking one, and it still poses the best. So, with all that said, let's get into the posing. For the posing section here, I actually want to be a little bit more organized this time and actually have a plan of attack for the posing. So what we're going to do is, for pose number 1, it's going to be a variation on the neutral pose. Then the second and third poses are both going to be variations of crouching poses. And finally, pose 4 and 5 will be flight stand poses. But I'm also going to have to stick to some rules for these poses. Now, not anything too crazy, but this guy does come with a lot of accessories. I know I mentioned the head sculpts before, so in each one of these poses, I'm going to require myself to use at least one accessory that he comes with, aside from hand accessories. For one pose, maybe I switch out the head. That would count as me using an accessory, or using a web line, or his backpack. Okay, so for pose number 1, we're gonna do a variation of the neutral pose. So what better time than to swap out the head and use the Peter Parker head sculpt that this figure comes with. That does look fantastic. What I'm thinking for this pose is, like, maybe, you know, he's done his work for the day, so he's like kind of like wiping off his forehead, or maybe he's like looking out into the distance. But in any case, I'm gonna switch his hand here, and be careful when you're swapping hands on these Mafex figures. They have made a lot of improvements with QC issues, and I haven't had a Mafex figure break on me yet, knock on wood. But just be careful when you're posing around. I think we're gonna put on his fist on this side, and maybe he's got his arm bent, you know, kind of like to signify that, like, yeah, he's like, he did his job, he won the day. but he's also like hella tired, right? Something I can definitely relate to these days. So, and you can see I'm just tweaking little things here, just to kind of, you know, make it look more natural. Okay, there we have it. The variation of the neutral stance. As you can see, for our accessory, we used the Peter head, as mentioned previously. And yeah, it looks great on this figure. I love the little painted symbiote, you know, kind of creeping up his neck. I think that looks fantastic. And yeah, again, nothing too crazy here. This is just a slight variation of a more neutral pose. For those of you who, you know, kind of want to see the full frontal of your figures, you know, see the whole design, and just want something simple but still, you know, kind of dynamic. So this one's for you guys. Okay, so moving on to pose number 2. Now we're into the crouching poses. What I want to do is, for our accessory, we're gonna do a head swap again, and we're actually gonna use, this time we're gonna use the like more mean looking Spider-Man head. But yeah, that looks great. And this one, we're gonna need both open hands. Okay, and we're going to get him into the classic crouched down pose. The Mafex hips, I feel like, are kind of weird. I feel like there's a lot of companies that just really can't get the hips quite right, and you know, I know a lot of people don't like the SH Figuarts hip setup, but I think that even though it may be slightly less attractive looking, it definitely gets the job done a lot better, I feel, in terms of articulation. But we want to get both of his arms down for this crouch right here. We want to get them down forward, so we need to bring these legs up, because he does have good movement in his torso area, but it's still not like super crazy. Like, I really wish that there would be a company to come along and make a Spider-Man figure that just has crazy crunch. I know the Sentinel Peter B. Parker has a crazy crunch on him, but I don't own that figure, and it's, to be honest, like, more expensive than I think I'm really willing to pay for him. And just test the limits a little bit, test the tolerances, right? But be careful not to break it. But you just kind of want to know what you're working with, and you get a pretty light, easy time here. Okay, so here we have it, the first crouching pose, and yeah, this is going to be a pretty basic, you know, just Spider-Man crouching pose. Now here, you know, maybe it could be a little bit better. I feel like if I spend some more time on this, I think I could make it look even more dynamic and aesthetically pleasing. But as it is right now, this is a good show of kind of what he can do. And the, you know, the full forward crunch is something that is really hard for a lot of Spider-Man action figures. Like this pose right here can be very difficult to get a lot of action figures in. So I think this is pretty good. I think this is really good. I just wish he could look up a little bit more. But with that, let's go into another crouching pose. So for this one, I kind of want him to be like having one sort of leg out and up like that, kind of. And then kind of bend at the waist a little bit, right down this way. So we're still trying to get him to crouch, but we want to do it in more of like an action-y way, right? Because the pose before is more like he's on a perch, right? He's looking down, watching the city, right? I want this to be more like, all right, I'm in a fight now and I'm jumping around maybe, and I just like dodged out of the way of something. I want to use his backpack because I haven't used it. And I probably won't ever use it again after this video. But let's try it out. I actually have not tried to do this. So let's slide his arm through. All right, there he is with his backpack. So there we go. I quite enjoy that. That looks awesome. Yeah, I didn't think I was ever really gonna use this or care about it, but it looks pretty cool, not gonna lie. Okay, so for the final two poses, it's going to be flight stand poses. So right here I have a flight stand so that we can get to work. Okay, so the first flight pose I want to do is something a little bit similar to the pose I did with Spawn in the last video that I said was kind of like the Spider-Man 300 cover with this guy on it, which I didn't actually end up doing the same pose as that one, but I think it still kind of invokes the same feeling. So we're going to do something similar to that with this guy. Because I always like to start with the torso area, like, I don't know, that just feels right to me. And I just kind of, you know, get that nice twist there with those two joints there, at the waist and at the upper torso. And then we kind of want to bring the arm down, right? Because I think I'm going to want to have him holding onto a web for this accessory to fulfill my accessory quota I've set for myself. So that's what we're gonna have him do for this pose. He does have drop down hips. I always forget he's got drop down hips, but he does have them, and they do work. And if you don't pull them down before you start moving them, they might not move in the ways that you want them to. So just be aware of that. Okay, so I've got the grabbing hand here. So let's just place the web into the grabbing hand, and we can take off the open hand and just gently put that in there. And wow, so let's get him on the flight stand. Okay, so this is the first flight pose, and yeah, he looks incredible. I love that they painted the bottom of the feet blue. I think that looks stunning. And the backpack comes in really handy too, because I can just kind of plop him on the flight stand like that. Spoiler alert, that's the reason I haven't taken off the backpack. But the backpack does look really cool too. I actually might display him like this. This is really, really awesome looking. And it's actually also the first time I put him on a flight stand. So there you go. Okay, so for this next pose, we're gonna actually switch out both the hands to whipping hands. We're also going to use the short thwippers. Okay, so I've just discovered that this the thwipping hand on his right side is very loose on there, and it doesn't want to stay on with the web accessory there. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna actually have to take that one off, unfortunately. Why don't we put on the grabbing hand again, and we'll bring back this web accessory. Let's twist the ab kind of forward to the side there, bring down this hip, and then we can kind of bring this like over, and we can bring this down Maybe we'll move his leg up. Maybe we want to change this whole thing after all. Maybe we want to have his legs spread like this. Maybe one down a little bit more. And this one can be up a little bit more, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. Alright, so here he is in the final pose. And yeah, as you saw there, like, you know, we were going for something completely different. At the beginning, I had sort of an idea of where I wanted to go, and, you know, it didn't quite work out because of the hand, and we just had to go in a completely different direction here. But I think it actually worked out really well still. Even though it's not quite what I was going for initially. You know, I ended up somewhere that I am pretty satisfied with. I think this is pretty good. Okay, that was my how to pose video on the Mafex Black Suit Spider-Man. I absolutely adore this figure. He is hands down my favorite Spider-Man figure in my collection at the moment. I don't have the classic version. I really want to get it. Eventually, I pre-ordered the new light blue version, and then I canceled my pre-order just recently, just because I don't feel like it's a purchase I need to make right now. But in the meantime, this guy is fantastic, and I would super recommend him. So, thanks for watching.